Hi, my name is Phil. I'd like to talk about politics. In this video, I'd like to discuss the moves that Dominic Cummings is now free to take in order to completely change the way the British civil service works. But first, if you'd like to see more of my videos, then please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, Dominic Cummings has long attacked the civil service. He's made it a particular axe to grind for himself, and he has been desperate for an opportunity to mould it as he sees fit, to modernise it, in his words. Now, with Boris Johnson's thumping majority in Parliament, he is now free to do just that. He's been given carte blanche to do whatever he likes, and it is a chance he is seizing with both hands. Now, there are mixed feelings about this on my part. I'm not sure that there are too many people that think the British civil service is fine as it is in terms anything. Any part of our political life has been shown to be in desperate need of modernisation. And for me, being brought up on the political satire of Yes Minister, it's my first political awakening, I've always been keenly aware that there are a lot of people who feel that the civil service is a drag effect on political change in the country and that it is in need of modernisation. But there is such a thing as making a less than ideal system much worse. Just because something is in need of change doesn't mean any change is good. But when people see a problem, they are all too ready to see change without considering if it's a good one. It's an attitude that explains both the Brexit referendum and the Trump election in 2016. In both cases, in the UK and the US respectively, the populations knew that things weren't working. They knew the system was not working for them, and they voted for change, massive change, without realising that the change they voted for worsens the problem and not improves it. In both cases, the votes were against the establishment. People of both countries are able to see that the establishment has not been doing them any good, not helping them at all, so they voted against it. The problem is they voted for something that was even worse than the establishment. So with Dominic Cummings forcing his changes on the civil service in Whitehall, is he implementing, change that's going to work out to be good? It's possible. It's just a bit worrying. Were it anyone else spearheading the change, I'd be asking, had they done a thorough feasibility study? Are they carefully considering it? Are they going to keep stopping and evaluating what's been done before pushing ahead with the next phase? But I wouldn't be arguing about changes to the system. I would never be arguing against modernising any system. But this is Dominic Cummings. He's a man who has deliberately manipulated systems and people, the whole public in fact, in order to achieve his aims time and time again. He doesn't really have our best interests at heart, and I fear that what he'll actually be doing is turning Whitehall into a huge propaganda department for the benefit of the Conservatives, who are his employer. Not quite the beginnings of the Big Brother machine necessarily, but, designed along the same philosophies, which is what worries me. Last week, Dominic Cummings wrote a blog, which I'll link in the description below, where he was appealing for, amongst other things, weirdos and misfits to apply for jobs at number 10, amongst more other usual roles such as data scientists and policy experts. Now, his blog reveals a keen interest in using mathematicians in order to model complex systems, in this case British society, I've no doubt. Now, will he be using these models to find out what people want and inform policy? No, I don't think so. I think he'll be using it in exactly the same way Cambridge Analytica did, rather than to get information, than to push information, to change people's perceptions of reality, of what really is. And this is where it could go down a very dark Big Brother route. Now, when you read his blog on his vision for the civil service, and I did read it with a great deal of interest, and I'd seen his speech from some years ago where he was talking about his attitude towards the civil service as well. And you can see that he does understand the issues with the civil service. He understands how to modernise it. The ideas would actually be really exciting if you thought he was on our side. He identifies a number of problems that the civil service have, and that others have pointed out over the years, going right back to when I was young, and no doubt before as well. And there's a real drive in his blog for diversity. And he uses the term, particularly what he calls cognitive diversity. And there has definitely been a massive lack of diversity in the civil service, particularly senior positions, which are just filled up with Oxbridge graduates, not even from a diverse range of subjects within Oxbridge. This was a real issue, for example, in the US. The US was blamed, its lack of diversity in senior military positions was blamed for the failure to appreciate bin Laden as a threat prior to 9/11. Their cultural ignorance worked against them. They just saw this fella sat in a cave. How can he be a threat? They didn't realise the symbolism of, doing his stuff from the cave. He wasn't like a beggar in a cave. He was an extremely wealthy individual. The cave was there, and its significance would have been instantly understood by someone with any knowledge of Islamic culture. But these white guys sat around a table, had no idea, and stuffed themselves over because of their cultural ignorance. We have the same thing in the British civil service. And, so then we think, could Cummings actually make Whitehall better? It is possible. I don't completely rule it out. He's a complete maverick. And although he's always been in the employ of the Conservatives, I say always, I mean, while he's been in the last 10 years or so, he sees the Conservatives not as something he's a part of, but as a vehicle to realise his ambitions, basically. He's insulted no end of senior Tories that he's worked with. And I'm sure he will Boris Johnson in the future as well once he's done with him. And he's attacked their very nature in public. He has said in a public speech, not secretly recorded, in a public speech, the Conservatives do not have our interests at heart. They do not care about the NHS. They do not care about us. He's quite open and honest about these things. In fact, to hear him talk about them, you'd imagine he had nothing but loathing for the Conservative Party. Dominic Cummings basically is a very selfish creature. He wants to make his mark on the world. He admires pioneers and he wants to emulate them. I've said before, he doesn't seem to care whether that mark on the world is good or bad. He cites both the Manhattan Project and the internet as major achievements for mankind. He doesn't care about what resulted from them. It doesn't matter about that. It changed the world and he admires it. Morality is not really his thing, only effects. That's all he's after. How can I affect the world in a way that people will see that effect long after I am gone? So it's possible that he would genuinely modernise the civil service and leave it in a better shape than he found it, that he's driven to do that. I was thinking he'd still intend to use it to keep the Tories in power. But he made an interesting comment on his blog that he wanted to refit Whitehall so that he wouldn't be needed anymore. So that he wouldn't be needed. That he could leave it and not have to do that job anymore. And it might be a genuine intention. Maybe not. If not, and then we are in real trouble. If so, and he completes his work, then maybe he will see that he has no further role in it anymore. He's made his change, he's happy with that, and have no further use for the Conservatives and move on to another project elsewhere. Preferably a long way away. But for now, we will just have to wait and see what happens. He's coming in for an awful lot of ridicule on this. I'm not going to ridicule him given the massive amount of power he now has. Everything he talks about with the civil service could be implemented for either the good or for the evil of the country. We don't know. Things he writes in that blog make a lot of sense. And if it were being driven by someone who had the best intentions, it could get the best results. But with someone as amoral as Cummings, I have no idea which route he'll go down. So I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, then please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.